There's complete and utter chaos. In Minneapolis, Donald Trump's threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy the military, and ICE just shot another person. But where we should start is with this address from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
My fellow Minnesotans, what's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live.
With Walz talking about how they're pulling over people indiscriminately, citizens are not, and demanding to see their papers, also breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, shoving people into unmarked vans, and in short, waging what he called a campaign of organized brutality, or what Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey called an invasion. You know, with ICE agents throwing flashbangs and tear gas, and protesters returning fire with fireworks and chunks of ice, there's really no other way to say it. Minneapolis looks like a war zone. In fact, things are so heated that the mayor said that people are asking local police to stand by their neighbors and help fight back against the federal invasion, but he responded,
"We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another. This is not creating safety. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE. And for anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful."
Also, on the note of ICE shootings, the agency shot yet another person last night, the second in a week after Renee Good. And with that, you had Homeland Security saying that federal agents pulled over a Venezuelan illegal immigrant, but he drove away, crashed into a parked car, and then took off on foot. And they say that an ICE agent chased him down, got into a struggle with him on the ground, at which point two people ran out of a nearby apartment and attacked the agent with a snow shovel and a broom handle. And next, the first man allegedly got loose and began striking the agent with a shovel or a broomstick as well. And ICE claims that then, under assault from these three individuals, the agent fired a shot in self-defense, hitting the first man in the leg, and then all three individuals reportedly fleeing into a residence and refusing to come out, but they were eventually arrested. With both the agent and the man going into the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries, and local police largely backing up this general story. So what you're seeing is, for those on the right, they're saying that the shooting there was justified. It shows the kind of danger that federal law enforcement face when they're trying to arrest criminals. But also at the same time, you're seeing those on the left saying this is yet another example of Trump's Gestapo provoking needless violence and chaos in a city that doesn't want them there to begin with. But also outside of just this specific situation, things look like they're about to escalate to a whole new fucking level, because today Donald Trump threatened to send the military into Minneapolis. Writing on Truth Social, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Now, for context here, the Insurrection Act has been invoked some 24 times in U.S. history, the most recent being 1992 when George H.W. Bush used it during the L.A. riots.
Early today, I directed 3,000 members of the 7th Infantry and 1,500 Marines to stand by at El Toro Air Station, California. I have committed these troops to help restore order.
Though a very big thing in that case is that local authorities had also requested it. And this time, by contrast, local officials want nothing more than ICE to
get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
But Trump, in addition to threatening to invoke the act repeatedly since taking office, he reportedly considered it multiple times during his first term, such as during the killing of George Floyd and after the 2020 election. So now you've got people on edge asking each other, is he really about to do it this time, or is it a bluff? Right? And that is a federal judge actually just handed Trump some more time, declining for now to restrain ICE's activities in Minnesota. And specifically there you have her saying that she wants more evidence before ruling one way or the other, and she gave the federal government and the state of Minnesota until January 19th and January 22nd to respond respectively. Also, while we're talking about evidence gathering, we've got to talk about the updates in the Renee Good case, because as we've talked about before, the official investigation of her shootings being led by the Trump FBI without the help of local authorities, and given what we know about the Trump DOJ, a lot of people just don't trust it. So now you have Renee Good's family hiring the same lawyers who represented the family of George Floyd, and they just announced that they're pursuing pursuing a civil investigation into her killing. But there, you've got the feds already getting out ahead of it, with the DHS claiming that the agent who shot her, Jonathan Ross, suffered internal bleeding to his torso during the incident. So also to be clear here, you have experts saying that internal bleeding, that doesn't necessarily mean that he had significant blood loss, right? Technically, he could have just had something as simple as bruising. And for their part, federal officials haven't yet elaborated at all on how serious the injuries were, but the right, they immediately jumped on this as proof that Good ran him over. Or with Vice President J.D. Vance writing, while much of the left has lied about this case, it turns out ramming a law enforcement officer with a car causes injuries. Who knew? Elon Musk also using the moment to claim that Good almost killed Ross. But all of this is, on the other side, you have many saying, at this point, the Trump administration has lost all credibility and nothing they say should be taken at face value. So for example, you have people like Brian Krasenstein outright accusing the feds of lying, pointing out that Ross was released from the hospital the same day that he was admitted.
This means that the maximum amount of time that Ross could have been at the hospital was 9 hours tops. The problem is that the minimum time that anybody would spend at the hospital if they actually had internal bleeding of organs in their torso would be 24 to 48 hours.
Right, and all of this is you have others saying that if nothing else, the Renee Good case, it demonstrates how important it is to document everything that's happening in Minnesota. Right, and that includes Tim Walz even alluding to further legal action against the federal government.
You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
Right, well, obviously you have the Trump administration cracking down harder and harder on Minnesota, and we're gonna have our eyes on this, and we're gonna be updating this. We should also quickly talk about, so you're aware of it, other different crackdowns. Right, things we're seeing like the Trump administration now suspending processing for all immigrant visas for people from 75 countries, with those including Somalia, Haiti, Iran, Russia, Brazil, Egypt, Nigeria, Thailand, and dozens of others, though this doesn't affect people seeking non-immigrant visas or temporary tourist or business visas. And with this, you had Trump's State Department claiming that they're doing this because these are countries whose migrants take welfare from the American people at unacceptable rates. And as that's playing out, they're going after Democratic lawmakers as well, with now 4 more members of Congress revealing that they're being investigated for that video last November where they reminded military service members that they don't have to obey unlawful orders.
Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Or with those being Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, Chris DeLuzio, and Chrissy Houlihan, all of whom say they received inquiries from Trump's prosecutor for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, requesting an interview with them or their private counsel. This also coming after a 5th lawmaker, Senator Alyssa Slotkin, said pretty much the same thing earlier this week. And of course, late last year, all 6 lawmakers in the video also said that they had received an inquiry from the FBI's Counterterrorism Division. But very notably, both in the then and now, these lawmakers, all of whom served in the U.S. military themselves, they've denounced the investigation as a sham attempt to threaten and intimidate Trump's political opponents. And then, this Trump administration overreach, it's happening to journalists as well. Right? Because yesterday you had Trump's FBI searching the home of a Washington Post reporter who covers Trump and the federal government. Right? And her name is Hannah Nathanson, and she describes herself as the federal government whisperer as she covers how the federal workforce has been overhauled. And you had the Post reporting that the FBI executed a search warrant at a Virginia home related to an investigation into a government contractor, saying that they seized her phone, Garmin watch, and both her personal computer and Washington Post issued laptop. And so then with this, you had tons of people and experts noting that this is highly unusual, right? The federal government rarely conducts searches at reporters' homes, and there are regulations specifically designed to protect journalists in these cases. Though also, according to the Post, Nathanson has not actually been accused of any wrongdoing, and she is not actually the focus of the investigation. Instead, saying this is part of a probe into a system administrator who was accused of mishandling classified reports, some of which were found in his lunchbox and home. And according to reports, he searched for classified information he was not authorized to access about a nation only identified as Country 1. And this person has actually already been charged, and at the time of his arrest, he was apparently messaging Nathanson, and there was classified information in their chat. Right? And even though there is no law barring journalists from reporting classified information, you had FBI Director Kash Patel saying that the alleged leaker was endangering our war fighters and compromising America's national security. With then also Attorney General Pam Bondi further accusing Nathanson of reporting classified and illegally leaked information from a Pentagon contractor and adding, the Trump administration will not tolerate illegal leaks of classified information that, when reported, pose a grave risk to our nation's national security and brave men and women who are serving our country. And then actually the Post said that it also received a subpoena to hand over communications between the alleged leaker and other employees. And so with all this online, you have a ton of people pointing to a piece that Nathanson wrote last month where she revealed that she has over 1,000 sources within the government. Apparently, she reaches them via the encrypted messaging app Signal, and she first got in touch with some by posting on a Reddit page for government workers. And so then with this, she developed a secure sourcing system with lawyers at the Washington Post, putting all notes in an encrypted drive, never writing anyone's name down, and never going anywhere without her devices that are reporting information. And, overall, you have many saying the FBI search on her as a direct threat to a free press. Where you have Post reporters saying that they're scared for their colleague and they're now scrambling to protect their sources, their reporting, their devices, trying to see if, they have to take new precautions. You also have the executive director of the Knight First Amendment Institute saying that these kinds of searches can deter and impede reporting that is vital to our democracy, saying the Justice Department should explain publicly why it believes this search was necessary and legally permissible, and adding searches of newsrooms and journalists are hallmarks of illiberal regimes, and we must ensure that these practices are not normalized here. You also had the executive director of the Post and again email to staff saying that this extraordinary aggressive action is deeply concerning and raises profound questions and concerns around the constitutional protections for our work. Right? And with all this, you have tons of people noting that this is far from Trump's first shot at the press, that with the lawsuits and more, he is seeking to control the media and cater it to his favor, saying this is the path, this has been the journey, noting, last year, Bondi reversed a Biden-era policy that restricted searches of reporters' phones and subpoenas against them. And so all of this, it's why it's going to be important to see where this case with Nathanson goes and if these policies are used in even more crackdowns. But this could very well be one of the first big dominoes here. And hey, with all of this, but especially the domestic stuff, right, the stuff that's happening in the United States, remember that none of this is happening in a bubble. Right? I mean, just one example. Amid all this, just today, as I was recording today's show, you had Trump boasting about what he claims to be all the things that he's accomplished and saying that, quote, when you think of it, we shouldn't have an election, in reference to the upcoming midterms. Midterms that he's not looking forward to, midterms that you have many saying he's essentially trying to rig the election, and midterms he's going into with his polling just in the toilet right now. On immigration, he's down 11 points, foreign policy, 14 points, the economy, 16 points, trade, tariffs, down 18 points, and of course, the thing that he's been trying to distract from continuously, 38 points down on Epstein. Though arguably the thing that's going to matter most going into an election is going to be immigration and the economy, and connected to the economy, affordability. We often see those 2-3 things being the biggest mover as far as getting people out to vote. And then there's more we've got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me say, who's got time to grocery shop? And even when I do have time, it feels like a chore that I didn't sign up for. But then I stumbled on today's sponsor, Hungryroot, the easiest way that I've found to eat healthy without overthinking it. Hungryroot's like a personal nutrition coach and grocery shopper in one. I tell them what I like, what I hate, my goals, and they fill my cart with food that fits my life. And it learns quick. After a couple of orders, it's basically like, yeah, we know what you like, we got you. And if you're trying to eat cleaner, go high protein, reduce inflammation, or avoid mystery ingredients, Hungryroot plans it for you. And the groceries are legit. Smoothies, quick lunches, kids snacks like the Sucker Punch dill chips, and even supplements. Their meats and seafood are high quality, no hormones, no antibiotics, and everything tastes like real food, not diet punishment. And the best part? No grocery spile, no 6 p.m. what do we make debate. It's handled. Even when motivation disappears, Hungryroot helps you stay on track. So hey, take advantage of this exclusive offer. Get 40% off your first box, plus a free item in every box for life. Just scan that QR code or go to hungryroot.com and use code DeFranco. That's 40% off and a free item for life at hungryroot.com, code DeFranco. But then, getting back into the news, more news you need to know. How close did we just come to a new war in the Middle East? And also, are we out of the woods yet? Right, that's what's being asked as the protests that have shaken Iran for weeks now may be coming to an end. And the horror that's unfolded there, it's only become more clear. Right, Iranian authorities, they've imposed a near total communications blackout of the entire country, but the information that has trickled out, it's painted a picture of a truly brutal crackdown. You've got a lot of witnesses reporting that the government forces have fired indiscriminately on unarmed protesters, and videos checked by news outlets appearing to back that up. The Washington Post, for example, verified clips that showed security forces firing directly into crowds of protesters in at least 6 different cities across the country. And then with all that, estimates of the total number killed reportedly range from under 2,000 to more than 12,000. Or with the US-based group Human Rights Activists in Iran, which has been one of the most widely cited sources, most recently putting that its confirmed overall death toll is 2,615, saying that 882 additional deaths remain under investigation. And then as far as those arrested, they're reporting that more than 18,000 people have been arrested. It's a sign of just how massive the crackdown's been. Even the government has taken the unusual step of acknowledging the huge number of casualties. So they emphasize the deaths of security services and otherwise try to cast the dead as victims of violent rioters rather than the state, and also accusing the United States and Israel of somehow being behind the protests. But also a big part of this is that you've seen Trump repeatedly threatening to intervene. And on Tuesday, you had Trump meeting with senior officials at the White House to discuss options, with CIA Director John Ratcliffe reportedly sharing information with Trump about the estimated death toll, and also showing the president videos of bodies in the streets and protesters being hanged in the past. And so then you had Trump saying in an interview airing that evening that the United States would take very strong action in Iran if they were to hang protesters.
And when they start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. it's not going to work out good.
But then, despite that, on Wednesday morning, you had Iran's chief justice calling for speedy trials and executions of what he called rioters, and added, those elements who beheaded people in the streets or burned people alive must be tried and punished as quickly as possible. And adding, if we don't do it fast, it won't have the same impact. And so then with that, a protester by the name of Irfan Sultani, he's believed to have been the first Iranian protester sentenced to death since the current unrest began, and he was widely expected to be executed on Wednesday. Right, and that is, you also reportedly had a senior Iranian official telling countries hosting American military bases in the region that they would attack them in the event of a U.S. strike. And actually, that wouldn't be the first time, right? Iran actually launched missiles at a U.S. base just last summer after Trump ordered those strikes on its nuclear facilities. Though I'll say that strike was widely seen as just symbolic, with Iran giving a warning ahead of time, a U.S. Patriot air defense battery shooting down almost all of the incoming missiles, and most American personnel having been temporarily moved from the base anyways. And something that was notable here is that this time around, we saw the Pentagon taking very similar precautions, where some personnel at a key U.S. military base on Qatari soil were advised to evacuate. The U.S. Embassy in Kuwait, they ordered its personnel to temporarily stop going to many military bases on its territory. Plus, the Pentagon apparently placed long-range bombers in the United States on alert for potential secondary strikes. And coincidentally, Iran closes airspace without explanation, with one person described as a Western military official telling Reuters at the time, all the signals are that a U.S. attack is imminent. Although he added, that is also how this administration behaves to keep everyone on their toes. Unpredictability is part of the strategy. And also with that, even as, it seemed on one hand that the conflict was inevitable, there was more happening. Sultani's family, they were told that the execution had been postponed. And you had the Iranian foreign minister going on Fox News and saying there was no plan to execute people for participating in the protests, and saying
hanging is out of the question.
Them also urging the United States to engage in diplomacy, saying it's much better than war. And then on the flip side, you had Trump telling reporters at the White House that he had received assurances from very important sources on the other side that Iran would not execute demonstrators, and added,
we've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping. It's stopped. It's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that on good authority.
Now with that, I'll say, when asked about whether military action had been taken off the table, he said, we're going to watch it and see what the process is. But still, you had one senior U.S. military official telling the New York Times that Trump's comments served as an off-ramp. And the Pentagon started preparing to stand down forces and allow troops to return to base. Iran also reopened its airspace, although some European airlines have reportedly continued avoiding it just as a precaution. And you also had Iran's president saying that the government is trying to address some of the economic problems that led to the initial protests. And you even had the Iranian judiciary suddenly claiming that Sultani had not been sentenced to death at all, and adding that he was convicted, and quote, the punishment according to the law will be imprisonment, as the death penalty does not exist for such charges. But of course, that's the guy from a government that's believed to have taken the lives of thousands of people this month and executed more than 1,500 last year alone. And now, even if it's true that people aren't being killed anymore, that doesn't mean that they're not being punished. Right? Iranian state media has reportedly kept announcing waves of arrests by authorities, and those being taken in being described as terrorists. Right? And there are signs that the crackdown may have done its job, with one foreign diplomat telling the Washington Post that the streets seem to be back to normal, and adding, I cannot believe that only a few days ago, people were taking to the streets. This speaks to the severity of the crackdown by the regime. The fear factor has gained the upper hand over people's urge and desire for change. Though with that, he also said it is difficult to assess at this point whether the latest uprising was only a prelude to another big wave or the end of the story. And so we'll have to see what happens in Iran, but also with the United States and the rest of the international community. Right, an emergency UN Security Council meeting was scheduled today to discuss Iran at the request of the United States. Foreign ministers from the G7 said that they were ready to impose additional restrictive measures on Iran over its handling of the protests, likely referring to sanctions. Also, the EU looks set to impose new sanctions, and actually the United States has now done so, announcing them today and saying that they target the architects of the crackdown. But of course, one of the big questions is that it, or could we still see some sort of military action? And the answer is, who really knows? I mean, just think about this summer. You had Israel launching major strikes against Iran, and Trump posted on social media, we remain committed to a diplomatic solution on the Iran nuclear issue, saying my entire administration has been directed to negotiate with Iran. But then, less than 10 days later, he himself authorized major strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, including one using the United States' 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs that have never been used in combat before. Now, of course, there was a lot of crazy rhetoric in between all that, where he appeared much more open to military intervention, but what seems clear here is that Trump is very happy to change his mind at any time. And in the here and now, the lack of military action so far, that may be partly explainable by other factors than him being against the idea. Reportedly, both Israeli and Arab officials have urged him not to attack Iran right now, and the actual options available to him right now may have been limited because of the military buildup in the Caribbean, where the US actually hasn't had an aircraft carrier near the Middle East since it got sent to support the campaign against Venezuela. If an attack on Iran, it spirals into a larger military conflict, there's no way of getting it back to the region quickly. Though I will say very notably, the Pentagon's now reportedly moving the aircraft carrier that's been stationed in the South China Sea to the Middle East. And then something we should actually talk about, right? This discourse about Iran, it's evolved into conspiracy territory, with some using red string to tie what's happening there to another big piece of news, which is yesterday's massive Verizon outage. Some of you watching may have actually been impacted. According to Down Detector, at its peak, around 180,000 Verizon outages occurred at once. I knew I didn't have signal for most of the day, but the site said that they received a whopping 1.5 million reports over the course of the 7-hour outage. And as far as the most impacted locations, you had New York City, Atlanta, Houston, and many, many more areas across the country. And actually, as all this was going on, you had some users reporting outages with other carriers like T-Mobile and AT&T, though both of those companies said there weren't actually any issues on their end, and they claimed that any disruptions were likely from customers trying to contact those affected by Verizon's outage. AT&T essentially tried to turn it into an advertising opportunity, saying, our network, solid. If you're experiencing issues, it's not us, it's the other guys. Some things are just out of our hands, but if you're interested in giving us a try, and you even had non-cell carriers get into the mix with Krispy Kreme promising free donuts to people who lost service. So funny enough, with that, it was more likely that those not affected by the outage would see this and be able to take advantage of it. But, this was a very real issue. In some cities, they even had to send out emergency alerts to residents to direct them on what to do amid the outage in the event of an emergency. And that is, you had Brendan Carr, the FCC chair, saying that the agency is reviewing the issue and will take appropriate action. So as far as their part, you had Verizon acknowledging the outage and multiple posts, apologizing for letting customers down and saying that teams were working nonstop to restore service. And what you saw is that by yesterday evening, the company announced that the issue had been resolved, though they didn't publicly say what the issue actually was. Instead, customers will be getting a $20 credit to make up for the outage, and you had Verizon saying, yesterday we did not meet the standard of excellence you expect and that we expect of ourselves, and adding you will receive a text message when the credit is available. Adding on average, this covers multiple days of service, and saying this credit isn't meant to make up for what happened. No credit really can, but it's a way of acknowledging your time and showing that this matters to us. But that said, if you go to their Twitter replies, you won't find many thank yous. Tons of people mad that the credit's not being applied automatically, saying that it should be a $20 credit per line at the very minimum. And also online, you had a ton of people turning this into kind of a conspiracy, where people here and there speculating without evidence, is this the result of Iran or other foreign interference? One of the loud voices echoing that was Laura Loomer, who tweeted, did Iran just conduct a massive cyber attack against US cellular network providers? So also, this is not a completely new lane for her. Back in 2024, when there was a different outage, she wrote, hearing that the Verizon outage is more than just an outage. Source tells me Verizon has been hacked on a national level and they don't want to disclose it publicly. Really until there's maybe an investigation connected from the FCC or somewhere, or until Verizon gives a clearer picture as to, what actually happened, there's going to be just this room for conspiracies to grow. With that, I'll say that ABC News reported that while law enforcement did look into the possibility of a cyber attack, right now the issue is believed to be the result of a server failure in New Jersey, which I would say wouldn't be the most surprising thing, since New Jersey has a history of big embarrassing failures that weren't fixed until the damage was already done. That one was just for my Jersey people. But then, from that, the final thing that we're going to talk about today are these crazy updates to the Grok sexual deepfake scandal. Because as we've talked about recently, tons of people have asked Elon Musk's AI Grok to undress photos of women and put them in bikinis or in other incredibly revealing clothing. It's a controversy that's caught the attention of lawmakers around the world, and no one's really been impressed by the company's so-called attempts to solve it. Last week, apparently as a way to deter people, X announced that the image generation tools would be limited only to paying subscribers, with people then saying that X and Elon Musk are not fixing the problem, they're just monetizing it. So then you had UK regulators launching investigations, countries like the Philippines threatening to block access to it, and actually just yesterday, California's Attorney General said that they would be investigating as well. And one of the big things with this, one of the big claims with this, is that some of the images generated were of children. So with all this, yesterday you had X's safety account unveiling new updates for Grok, saying, we have implemented technological measures to prevent the Grok account from allowing the editing of images of real people and revealing clothing such as bikinis. This restriction applies to all users, including paid subscribers, though then they went on to say, we now geo-block the ability of all users to generate images of real people in bikinis, underwear, and similar attire via the Grok account and in Grok and X, and those jurisdictions where it's illegal, while then also restating the previous change only allowing paid subscribers to use Grok to edit images. So now you've got people responding by saying that people weren't asking to geo-block sexual deepfakes, they were asking to block them everywhere, with everyone. They're saying that you shouldn't still be able to create this material based on your global zip code, especially since right now it's not exactly clear where it'll be blocked. And there you had reporters at The Verge testing it out and saying it's still easy to get Grok to edit photographs of real people into sexualized poses despite X's updated restriction. And this is people saying it appears that these rules only exist when using Grok on the X app, and that on the Grok standalone app, restrictions don't apply. But still, what you've seen is that some have applauded this step forward, with British regulators saying that this is a welcome development, though their investigation is still ongoing. And you've also had Elon Musk defending the tool yesterday, denying reports that deepfakes are still being made of anyone underage, and then saying, obviously, Grok does not spontaneously generate images. It does so only according to users' requests. When asked to generate images, it will refuse to produce anything illegal, as the operating principle for Grok is to obey the laws of any given country or state. But with that, adding, there may be times when adversarial hacking of Grok prompts does something unexpected. If that happens, we fix the bug immediately. But there, you've had people like California's Attorney General pushing back, arguing, this is very explicit. It's very visible. This isn't a bug in the system. This is a design in the system. So, with that, I really would love to know your thoughts, opinions, reactions, whether it's to this story, really anything we covered today. Let me know what you're thinking and why in those comments. Get involved in the conversation, especially because that is where your Thursday Philip DeFranco show dive into the news is going to end. Well, of course, I'll probably see you right back here on the channel Friday or Monday. We've got even more right now, just a click away, whether it's the last Philip DeFranco show you might have missed last night or the brand new podcast Crashing Out with myself and Alex Perlman. Okay, love you faces. See you soon.